So welcome all to the second part of the three-part webinar series on allyship and reconciliation. My name is Rebecca Sinclair, and I'm your host for today's session. And in the spirit of these discussions, I would like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from Winnipeg, which is on Treaty 1 territory, ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Dakota, Dene, Métis, Ojibwe nations. I would also like to acknowledge that our water is sourced from Stroh Lake 40 First Nation. My name again is Rebecca Sinclair. I'm Nehewin, originally from Brochet, Barren Lands First Nation, and a current member of Little Saskatchewan First Nation. I am the program coordinator for Lake Winnipeg Indigenous Collective. The collective is made of First Nations around Lake Winnipeg that strive to have our sacred waters protected. Our vision is that our sacred waters are healthy, traditional livelihoods are restored, and Indigenous perspectives are influential in leading the protection and sustainability of Lake Winnipeg as a source of life for all future generations. For those of you who are not aware, we are recording today's session, and a video of today's webinar will be available at a later date for future reference. That being said, we definitely want to make this a virtual space interactive and encourage you to send any questions that arise during this discussion through the Zoom's chat function. We have allotted time at the end of the session, and we can try to answer as many of these questions as possible. I'd like to take a moment to thank Natural Resource Canada for committing to having these important discussions and inviting the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation to partner on the series. I'd like to acknowledge the knowledge keepers who are here with us today and who have generously agreed to share their knowledge with us. Last week, we introduced allyship and reconciliation in the context of understanding treaty relationships. Elder Harry Bone shared Anishinaabe principles embedded in ceremony, including natural law. Today, we have two knowledge keepers with us to help unpack what natural law is, and how it affects the natural resources and environmental protection. We are fortunate to have Grandmother Catherine Whitecloud from Wipazoka Wakpa Dakota Nation with us today. Catherine, would you be willing to share a few words about yourself?
About myself, yes. I, as a Dakota person, traditionally am from my community of Wipazoka Wakpa, with my ancestors dating way back to the Minnesota area, South Dakota area, Montana. My relatives are far, and to the west and to the north and east and everywhere. My background has been as an educator and as a leader for many organizations, and sitting on committees and boards and speaking on behalf of our people, and has translated into, that experience has translated into what I do today, which is to share what I learned from my grandmother, my great-grandmother on my father's side, whom I lived with by choice. They taught me and they taught my brother about the importance of retaining our ancestral knowledge and our ancestral history to carry it forward for our young people and our grandchildren, those yet unborn. And so a lot of my focus lately has been on that, given that our knowledge is valuable and it's living and it's breathing, and we need to utilize that knowledge to help all of our relatives around the world in the crises we find ourselves in with regard to the state of the environment and the state of everything that is happening with the melting of ice caps, the desecration of vast tracts of land and forests, and our waters being damaged. All of that impacts us individually. And so I spend a lot of time with my colleagues like Gordy and others, and we talk about these things, and not just to talk, but because we individually need to do something about it. So that's what I am doing quite a bit of these days.
Great, thank you so much, Catherine. Feel free to start with your presentation, and then we'll introduce Gordy after yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here in the ancestral territories of all of our people that we share, and along with that sharing comes a responsibility to care for it. And so today I wanted to share what I know to be our truth about the natural laws, about what the Creator has given us for how we conduct our care for our earth, our mother that provides everything for us. So As Indigenous people, we're intimately connected to the well-being of our lands, our waters, and our natural world. And we are intimately connected physically and spiritually. And that is one of the reasons why today we see such illnesses amongst our people that were never heard of even by my grandmother, and even in my childhood. Illnesses that had never been amongst our people, we now see. And the one that we are currently seeing, this pandemic that has caused pretty much the world to shut down, the world as is known by most, is for a very specific reason. And it ties into our discussion today. Because in the end, Mother Earth is in charge. She is the one who determines what is going to happen. She is the one who has been telling us and sending us messages for quite some time now that we are not taking care of her as we are supposed to be. We are not doing the things we're supposed to be doing. So we find ourselves in the situation we find ourselves today, which many young people are having a great difficulty with, to be isolated, to be sitting at home during this pandemic, to follow these health orders that have been handed out, when really in the past, and as I was sharing with my children, my grandchildren, that I have no problem with this isolation whatsoever. In fact, it takes me back to how I grew up with my grandmother, how I lived back then, how we lived in a sense of living very simply, but filled with love and gratitude, that we had a cabin that was warm, that we had light from our coal oil lamps, that we had water that we could get out of the stream, and that we had food that came from our snare and trap lines set by my grandmother. And we were happy, and we were warm, and we were fed, and we had her. And we learned a lot from her during winter time, which is that time of the year now where we teach our young people and where we teach our children. He is a man of the land, and he has so much to offer. I've heard him speak many times, but I'd like to share a little bit more in what guides us in our relationship with the land, and what guides us in our relationship with all of the natural order of life as was given to us by our Creator, because we are only one component of the natural life of this earth. We were the last ones to be created. Else was created before us. We were last created. Spiritual teachings, and our chanupa, which is our pipe that was brought to us, and the teachings that came with that we live and pray in peace and harmony. We find happiness in our 7 principles, which includes prayer, respect, compassion, honesty, generosity, humility, and knowledge that comes from all of that. We're guided by and honor these principles. We use a word to express love that has no equivalent in the English language. It's a blend of love and heart. It's heart-based. We also believe that compassion is a way to express that love. And the reason why I bring up these 7 principles is because that is our direct connection with everything that is around us, including the land and the natural resources that she provides so that we can survive. It is really a spiritual connection. It's a human but it's a spiritual connection because we impact it. We impact it through our words, our actions, and it's been proven now, and unfortunately and sadly, oftentimes the words, the ancestral knowledge that we share is only taken to heart once it's quantified or proven through science. And science has now proven that our words can change the energy of water. And so we think about that, and I thought about that in the context of there is a reason why grandmothers pray for water. There is a reason why women have responsibility for water in our culture and in our traditional ways. It's because a woman is responsible for the well-being of family. and and family is inclusive of all that is alive today, everything that has a spiritual energy. And so when I read that, information about how man's word can change the energy of water, I thought to myself, well, that's not we always have. We never at a very early age to appreciate everything that's living, all the grass, the trees, the animals, even so far as your pets that are in your home. They're able to cry, and they have feelings too. This is what we believe. We are raised to respect everything that surrounds us. We pray for everything that breathes life. Everything is sacred, including food. I recently learned about this this experiment about showing drops of water change depending on the feelings of the person watching or your voice. I'm glad that the scientific community is learning that which we have always known, and that it supports what we speak about through our ancestral knowledge and what we've learned from our grandparents and our aunties and uncles. I believe matter changes with our energy if we use hateful words. And that is why, and Gordy will talk about that, as my brother does, that when he goes out hunting, how he sets out tobacco first, and how he prays, and how he gives thanks, and about walking on the land gently, and about being careful where you put your footprint, all of that. Then those are men's teachings that Gordy will talk about, but I learned from my brother, who speaks about these things as he's teaching our grandchildren, our grandsons. When you send love from your heart, this love beautifies the nature of whatever surrounds us. This is what we teach our people. When you bless your food, you make it richer. People and things feel your energy. This is what keeps you healthy. It's a very beautiful and simple way to live your life. It's not the world's changed quickly. We live in a drive-through world. If you want a cup of coffee, go through the drive-through. You want a quick meal while you're driving down the road, go through the drive-through. Or I want hot water, well, I'll put it in the microwave, it'll be ready in 2 minutes. All of this doesn't take into account that the appreciation and the respect for what is being provided to us. Everything is rushed in our effort to get to the next thing, instead of paying attention to the moment that we're in and what we're doing. And so we do go about life mindlessly when we reach that stage that we don't pay attention to even eating our food or to boiling our water in the microwave oven. I don't own one. We don't have one in our home. It's just too unnatural, and it's not okay for my body to take that in. So I've made that choice not to utilize a microwave oven in my home. But that goes to what we talk about, that we reached a point we are walking through life mindlessly, and we're missing out on all the beautiful things in the creation that's been given to us. And this is in relation to, and I'm aware of the topic about what do we do to sustain natural resources and environmental protection. Well, that's a fine example, a very simple one in our homes. Even little things like we all collect water and buy water in plastic bottles. There's really no need for it. There is a way to purify your own water at home if it's not safe to drink, and sadly, that's the stage we're at, which I knew was going to happen because my grandmother told me when I was 10 years old, as I complained when I went to get water from the creek, someday you're going to have to pay for your water. Appreciate what you have today. She saw that back in the late 50s. So those things I'm mindful of in my daily life, what she told me then and what is happening now. There are many things that we are taught that we shouldn't do and we ought not to do, but in our culture, we are not taught about the negative aspect about not doing it. We are taught about what we should be doing, and the not doing is oftentimes left out of the lessons, but we learn through the doing of the good things. This planet belongs to everyone, and we have to take care of it. And sometimes we forget about, not sometimes, pretty much every day, we forget about the fact that every single person and every individual's actions impact somehow the entirety of what we live in, the world, the environment. They say our lands have coal, and we face and we face many financial interests in this world, but we have to do things through peace and harmony. This is what our lives stand for. So when we know that there are natural resources that big corporations want in our lands, that it's on our lands, and I know in the north they struggle with the fact, and it has damaged greatly their traditional territories through the hydro water projects, and another one that's being built again. What and how will it impact the lives of our relatives, the animals that live on the land, and the trees and the plants that we depend on? How will it impact that? That was never thought through before hydro dams were built. And in fact, that's another thing I was told as a child, that someday our rivers would run backwards. I couldn't fathom that, but I see it now. It's through these hydroelectric dams that have been built and the damage it's done to the earth and to our environment. So those are things that are short term, and it's big business and it's big corporations that do these things without taking into consideration how it impacts not only us as Indigenous peoples, how it impacts the land, and therefore how it's going to impact them and their children and their future. We are taught one of the very first principle we're taught is that we pay attention and are the keepers of what is going to happen to our seventh generation, the principle of the seventh generation. And it is that in what may or what way will my actions affect the world in 7 generations, not just my home, not just the community I live in, but how will it affect the world in 7 generations? Thus, keeping our lands, our waters, our mountains, and our air clean is of utmost necessity. Every day that we wake up, every morning when we open our eyes, we give thanks that we're on this earth for another day. It's a miracle. So we have to live it accordingly, because we can't be so arrogant as to think that we're here of our own volition, that we're here because we choose to be here. We're here because there's a specific purpose for every single one of us about our role in life and our contribution to the fabric of everything. And every single person is put here for that purpose. And that is something that is lost in this fast world that everybody lives in. But there is hope. But it's sad to see how financial interests come before everything else. One believes basic things should work a certain way until big corporations choose money over everything else, no matter how hurtful or immoral it might be. In the face of this, we maintain optimism. Our mother, the earth, will survive. She will survive and she will regenerate. It is human race that will not survive, even though we are arrogant enough to think that we will, because we think we can control everything. This COVID has taught us that we are not in control. Those massive fires that happened in Fort McMurray a couple summers ago also showed us that we're not in control, and that was a lesson to be learned about what was happening to the environment, but it was never listened to. The earthquakes that are happening. Volcanoes grounded the richest man in the world when he couldn't fly his private jets. Mother Earth was in control. All of these things that we know and we see and we pay attention and we take lessons from them because it impacts us. It's going to impact our children. But as I said, there is hope because we have no choice. This should inspire us all, future generations to come. It's our responsibility. There is a term that is used often, and I read about it in academic journals and such, and it often refers to our people as being earth-based, which connotates that we worship the earth. We don't worship her, we honor her. We humble ourselves to the sacred energy of all life, knowing we are one. We stand up when we address the Creator. We bow down and touch the earth and to acknowledge and give thanks to our mother, the original mother. We see ourselves as part of the universe, part of all that is seen and part of all that is unseen. We recognize that we are no better and no worse the animals and the stars. The ant, that tiny little creature, is greater than all man. We were taught that as children. We have to respect the source of life. There needs to be a fast move toward other forms of energy that are safe for all nations upon Mother Earth. We understand the types of minds that are, unless we do this, the power of destruction will overwhelm us. We need only look to the example of what is happening to our relatives south of the border. When power takes over and when man is allowed to do what has been done, and the ramifications are felt by others now today. Our ancestors, my Kunshi, told me that water would someday be for sale. Back then, this was hard to believe, since the water was so abundant and plentiful and was so pure, so full of energy, provided us with nutrition, and even then, the nutritional elements have been taken out of it, so it's just empty liquid. Someday water will be like gold. It's going to be too expensive to afford, and actually, it's reaching that point. Just look at your Manitoba Hydro bill the next time you receive it, because it's water that is generating that energy that you pay for. Not everyone will have the right to drink safe water. We fail to appreciate and honor our sacred land, ripping out the minerals and underneath it. And if Mother Earth attacking nations and using more resources to carry out destruction in the name of peace is not the answer, including amongst ourselves. There is no need for us to squabble over land. We need to be coming together to protect it and take care of it. We need to understand how all of these decisions affect our nations and the global nation. We will not be immune to the repercussions if we, as caretakers of this land, this original land that we were placed here to take care of, if we don't stand up and fulfill our responsibilities. Allowing continual contamination of our food and land is affecting the way we think, and people don't think about that. All in the name of power, a disease of the mind has set in. With those who are elected as leaders, and with those who lead big corporations, because the disease of the mind is all about money. And money will not buy you life. At the end of the day, money will not buy you life. In our prophecies, it is told that we are now at the crossroads. Either we unite spiritually as a global nation, or we'll be faced with chaos, disasters, diseases, and tears from our relatives' eyes. Well, we've reached a point of chaos, we've reached a point of diseases, and we've reached a point of the tears are flowing from our relatives' eyes. We're the only species that is destroying the source of life, our mother, the earth, in the name of power, mineral resources, and ownership of land, using chemicals and methods of warfare that are doing irreversible damage as Mother Earth is becoming tired and she can't sustain any more impacts of war or damage. So here's the choice that we have to make. We must remember to give thanks for the sacred food that has been gifted to us by our mother, so the nutritional energy of medicine can be guided to heal our minds and spirits. This new millennium will usher in an age of harmony, or it's going to bring the end of life as we know it. Starvation, war, and toxic waste have been the hallmark of the great myth of progress and development that ruled the last millennium. To us as caretakers of the heart of Mother Earth, we have the responsibility of turning back the power of destruction. We have to, for the sake of our grandchildren. You yourself are the one who must decide what your role in this is. You alone, and only you, can make this crucial choice to walk in honor or to dishonor your relatives. On your decision depends the fate of not only your family, your community, our nations, but the entire world. It's that simple. I want to share the words of our sacred, the keeper of our sacred pipe. You are needed. Each of us is put here in this time and this place to personally decide the future of mankind. Did you think the Creator would create unnecessary people in a time of such terrible danger? Know that you yourself are essential to this world. Understand both the blessing and the burden of that. You yourself are desperately needed to save the soul of this world. Did you think you were put here for something less in the sacred? I leave you with those words, and because I want to save time for save time for my brother Gordon to speak, because he has so much to share. So I thank you very much for listening and for taking to heart the words that I shared. Those are words from my ancestors. That's the knowledge that has been shared with me and passed down. And I share them with you because that is our responsibility to ensure that everyone has this knowledge. Wopide amitake was.
Catherine, that was beautiful. I think that there is a great sense of urgency in your voice that kind of just resonates with me. I know that there was like some lagging, but your words kind of caught up after it lagged. So I think we got most of what you were saying, if not all of it. And I think that the biggest takeaway here is that there is an urgency and that we all have a responsibility here to support our Mother Earth. And I always like to say that Western science is very slowly catching up with our ancestral knowledge. So I appreciate that component into your talk. So Nagasane, thank you so much for your words. It's my pleasure to introduce our next teacher, Gordon Walker from Kinaseo Sepik First Nation. Gord, can you say a couple things about yourself, and then we'll let you go into your part of the presentation.
Good afternoon. Like Rebecca said, I'd like to welcome everybody first. And my name is Gordon Walker, and I was mentored by old people, an old person from Hobima, husband and wife. His name was Buffalo Child. And they left us, me and my wife, with the medicines and ceremonies. So this is what we go out and do. Like, we're invited places and we go to camps, set up camps for people and teach them how to cook and also the language. So that is what I do. And I want to start off by telling you this story because it really ties into what we have been saying as knowledge keepers for a while. And I cannot express enough about the language, because to know the language, like, for myself, I am Minino and Nimoin. What you would call Cree. And Cree just doesn't describe who we are. So I would like to share this story that, I had a dream not too long ago. I was driving by and there was somebody on the side of the road. And I stopped and he came in front and he asked me, and this guy was a Christian, and he asked me, "How is it in your way of belief?" He told me. So the sun was shining, the wind was blowing, and I could see the rain clouds And as soon as I said, well, you know, first I told him, we were a thought in our creator mind, in our creator's mind, that he wanted to create something. He wanted to create a beautiful place. So he said, first, he created the sun. And when I said that, I could feel the sun really hitting my skin. Like it really, you could feel it change the temperature, eh? This is what I felt in my dream. And then I said, and then he created the wind. And again, the wind came to my face and I could feel that wind just brushing my face. And then I said, and then he created the thunderbirds. Said, and I could see all the rain clouds around me. And then and then after he finished those, he said, I want you, the first grandfathers and the grandmothers, I want you to finish the earth for me. I want to create something in my own image. That is what he told them, the first grandfathers. And so, this is what the first grandfathers did, eh? The sun, the wind, the thunderbird. They help with the plants, the plant life, the insects. And then after that, they created the first animal, which was the buffalo, Pascoimistus. And then they created all the animals. And so with every animal that he created, he appointed this animal to keep a plant for every animal had a plant for to keep. He said, I want you, when my people arrive, when the humans arrive, that I want you to show them this plant so that if they get sick, so that they can heal themselves. So that is why in our language, we have all these plants named after, in our language, after the animals. Like we say, for a mountain ass, we say Maskominanatik. It talks about Muska, the bear. Kagagiminatik, juniper. Kagagiminatik. It talks about the raven. Gagago. Apistisasewaskus. Apistisagwewaskus. It talks about Apistisagweso, like, you know, the little mink. But what that means is the little root, the Valerian root. So that is why when people have dreams today, the animal shows up, maybe in a human form, sometimes as an animal. And he will tell you, it will tell you that the Creator has sent me to come and give you this medicine, to show you this medicine. And so we speak all our laws, all the laws that we have are in our language. They're all in there. So, you know, we as elders, we really push that for you, you know, for people that want to learn about the laws, that, you know, you cannot do it with the English language. If you want to create some kind of laws they're already there. You cannot create them, but they are already there, and I will tell you some of them. See, we speak in Inimuin, the Cree language, as you know. But it talks about Ininimuin, and you hear that word Nimuin. It talks about a dance, Nimuin. Kaniminamagawian, Nimuin. It means the dance that's been lowered from up there, from the spirit to you. So in our language, we say nite, my heart, nite. And then you say nite nani, my tongue. Nite nani mihtan. I'm going to dance my heart with my tongue. That's what it literally translates to. Nite nani mihtan. I'm going to dance my heart with my tongue. This is what Ininimuin is. And all the laws that were given, all the family were given laws to follow by our Creator, and it comes from that language. For me, I am the oldest son in my family. So they call me Nistes. Nistes. I said, that's my brother. What that means is, Otanistes Kamagyo. Otanistes Kamagyo. It means the heart that walks in front. Otanistes Kamagyo. The heart that walks in front. So I have that law to carry, the responsibility to carry. The Creator gave me that. To look back at my siblings coming after me. And I have that responsibility to teach them, to show them how to live, because I've been there already. And I have an older sister. Nimis, I call him my sister. Nimis. But what that means is Nimisimic, the one that tells on me. Nimisimic, the one that tells on me. Because, she used to tell on me for everything that I did wrong. Those sisters are like that. So it's these things. Like, every time I go out there onto the land, I have a really, I think, a connection that I have been taught by my elders, because I have listened to them. And we say, Nigawi, my mother, Nigawi. And this is the law that was bestowed on our Mother Earth by the Creator. Senigawi, she was supposed to provide for us. And in our language we say, Nigawi no nik. She's gonna feed me with the water, no nik. Breastfeed me with the water. Nigawi esamik. Nigawi esamik. She's gonna feed me. Nigawi kispewatik means she's gonna comfort me. So that's the law that our earth follows. She will always follow that. She will always take care of us if we let it. If we let her. There's stories about Wisagachak in our language. The Anishinaabe people call him Nanabush, Nanabozo. But, in our way of life, we call him our brother. It's the Creator's son. Wisagachak. And he has a law to follow also. It means Kawisagehat Aschago. It means the one that loves the spirit. That's what Wisagachak. Kawisagihat Astago. Kawisamat Astago. It means the one that invites the spirit to a good place. This is who our brother is, Wisagetzak. And we use him like the way Christian people use him for the teachings. We tell stories, sometimes funny stories, about Wisagetzak. And he had a bird, his favorite bird, Wisagetzak's bird, we call him. We call him Wiskachis. But then we said that Wisagetzako penesissima. Wiskachis. So that's the great J, the Wiskachak they call it now, eh? So that is why they call it Wiskachak, because somebody said Wisagetzako penesissima. That is why they call it Wisagetzak. We have Wiskachak now. Those great J's, eh? And so when we go out onto the land, this is the bird. As soon as you light a fire and he smells that smoke, he's the one that comes and opens the door for you to start looking at the relationship that you have with the land. This is a law that the bird carries. He was supposed to do that for us. Every day, the earth has a language of his own, like Catherine was saying. She has a language. If we choose to listen, we sit down at least a couple hours a day and not say nothing and just listen. She will tell you lots. Excuse me, but I enjoy my cigarette. I enjoy my smoking. And all these things, the animals, they carry what you call names. We call them Pisiskoak, the animals, eh? Pisiskoak. Pisiskoak. What that means is Kawina Pisiskenim. Some of them have this word. Pisiskoak. Kawina Pisiskenimik. Do not bother them. Do not bother them. In this category, there's the wolf, there's the otter, there's the mink, the weasel, the bats. We don't bother them. We don't try and eat them. Even the eagle. So that is why there is the law there. Do not bother in our language. So we were not supposed to bother those to try and eat them. And this is where, people say diseases come from. When we start bothering these things and putting them in our bodies. And this is an understanding of our language and of the old people. And also the flying beings that fly south. They have a law to follow. We call them Awiasisak. Awiasisak. Wias, you hear that word, wias. But those ones that follow come back and forth. We call him Awiasisak. Awiasisak, the waterfowl, the birds that go back and forth. And so, this word, Awiasis, you'll hear wias. It's the flesh. Wias. Awiasuin means to borrow. So we borrow this for a little while. Like also we borrow their life so that we can live. We borrow their life, we can eat them. This is what Awiasisak means, Awiasuin, to borrow. Like the sickness that's going on. We call it misakamiyaski tsakatamuin. That's how we say it in our language. Tsakatamuin means pneumonia or lung disease. When you call it that, you know, we say pakitatamuin in our language, it means air. In our language, it means air, pakitatamuin. But what that literally means, pakit natatahtamuin. Let yourself borrow. See, as I inhale, I'm borrowing it for a little while and I release it back. This is what breathing is. Pakitatamuin. Let yourself borrow for a while. So when you say tsakatamuin, etsagin naman kitahtamuin. It means that you ran out of the thing that you have borrowed. This lung disease that's going on. So a little bit about that, the natural loss, the loss of our people. See, in our language, we say, again, so, so, means the crow. What does that mean? He has a law to follow also. So he's the one that brings the summer. That means he carries it over to this side. that. And when we hear the raven up here, we are so happy that summer is going to be here. And then he takes it back. That's why we say aso, because he carries it back and forth. And this is the law that this crow carries, and all the animals, they have a law that they were supposed that they follow. And we, in our language, come to understand this. In our Cree language, of all the animals that we see around our environment, they carry the laws of our Creator. And so that is why, you know, I always stress that, like, you know, for non-Indigenous people to comprehend, it's going to be really, really hard if you don't understand the language. We can tell you, but that is why we keep saying, like, you know, we go to so many camps and stuff like that. But, you know, one thing I always put out there is to know the language, so you'll start to understand the laws of our Creator. So a little bit about that. I don't know what else that is it that you want me to talk about, but, you know, I'm here to, if anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
Thank you so much, Gord, for that. I think we learn so much from the language as we talk it, and that part gets explained to us. And I think that this whole speech or presentation that you gave really clarifies that. Like, when we just try to directly translate the language, lots gets lost, and we don't really fully feel it spiritually when it's directly translated. When we get to hear where those meanings come from and where those stories come from through the language, I think it sits a little bit more into our hearts and into our spirit. So thank you so much for that, for those words. You know, you said my sister's name is, what did you say? Nemis?
Uh-huh.
My sister calls me her nemesis. I taught her the word nemesis and as a sister, and she goes, oh, okay, I get it. You're my nemesis. That was funny, your explanation of that word. So we'll go into a Q&A session now. We have some questions from the audience here. I think our first question, we'd like to talk about how can you connect to Mother Earth in an urban setting? And either one of you, Catherine or Gordon, can feel free to answer that question. But a lot of us are in these urban settings, and because of COVID, having to stay indoors. What are some ways that we can really connect to Mother Earth and understand the importance of her gifts while we're surrounded by concrete?
Go ahead, Catherine.
Gordy, I was just going to say, Gordy, you have a wonderful response to that, because we've talked about this before. You know, a lot of people say when we talk about prayer and we talk about using our sacred ceremonial objects and we talk about using a pipe, and one of the things that Gordy shared at one of our get-togethers was he said, you have an instrument to use for prayer, and that is your voice. And our relationship with all that is living, and as I mentioned earlier, we are all connected through spirit, is through prayer. It's through our voice. And so a way of connecting with Mother Earth is through your prayer, and to give that thanks every morning and every night before you go to bed, and thank you for the breath of life. Thank you for all that you provide for me to nourish me so I can live. I thank you for your guidance. Thank you for the water that I drink so I can live. That is a very simple way of addressing the relationship with the earth. And Gordy, you can add to that, because I'm just borrowing your words when you shared that with us.
You know, as Indigenous people, we were given 4 things to follow. 4 things. One is fire. The first one is fire. In our language, we say iskoteo. Iskoteo, eh? And so we say iskeote. It means a woman's heart, this fire. And it's also a spiritual fire where we get our spiritual warmth and our warmth from this iskoteo. So this is the first, and all the teachings that come from there. You know, as young men, you know, my father used to tell me, "Temante, go get some wood." But what that means is mante, is mani stakite. It means prepare your heart for your home fire. Prepare your heart for your spiritual life. This is what mante means. Go get wood. Temante, mani stakite. Prepare your heart for your home fire, and also for, you know, your people. This is what we were taught as young men. And this is what we go into a sweat lodge, and you'll see these two or more young men that attend to that fire, and they are learning about that, you know, to take care of their home fire and their people. So that is why you have that. So that is the first one. And the second one is the sweetgrass that I have here. We say wikask in our language, wikask. Yeah. So it means the wikaskotien. It means to walk through the hard times. When you're having a hard time, you light this up. Wikaskote means walk through. Wikaskote. And then you say wikaskomo. Wikaskomo. It means the wikaskomo, and it means to let your voice out so that you can say what you need to say to the Creator. This is what the sweetgrass represents. And in here, you have your spirit, mind, and body, like the way it's braided. We are looking for this patawin, we call it. Patawin means balance in the English language. Patawin means, in our creed, balance. So we are looking for this balance in our life. So that is why you see the hair of our people like this. Seka patochik. Seka means the comb, patoin means the balance. So seka patochik. So when you see an indigenous person with a braid, he is looking for that balance. Eka patot. And the third thing was our pipes. Spoken. It means a spenim, pawagan. It means to rely on your helper, rely on the spirit. That's literally what this pipe means, a spenim, pawagan. And so in the fourth, is that tobacco that we still make from the bush, like from the forest. It means sistemao. It means it means to send it with your heart. That is what tobacco means in our language, to send it with your heart. So when I go into the urban setting, when I go to the urban setting, you know, I find a sweat lodge. And I go sweat with my brothers. Maybe you guys know Ed Azer. I've been to U of M. I went and sweated with my brother Ed Azer over there. So, you know, there's places that people can go. But, you know, also with just this, when you're acknowledging something, it is a ceremony. You don't have to be out on the land at this time. But wherever you have a chance, like, you know, this is what I do. I go out on the land whenever I have a chance. But at the same time, I have a sweat lodge out here. So, you know, I have that connection with Mother Earth, with sweat lodge, Matutsan. And that's another story that I can tell you about the sweat lodge, how it came to be. I will tell a little bit to start off. You know, in every race of people, we call this guy Chakapes in our language, the spiritual boy. Chakapes. So there's one the Creator sends to come and give something to his people. And this is a story about Chakapes, how he was given the sweat lodge for us to use, the first person. So it's something like that in every nation, that, you know, there'll always be a spiritual person that will come in a time of need. So that is why we have those stories. But that is for another time. So it's up to us, you know, it's up to us if we really want to learn. Like, you have to do it hands-on. We really, really want to learn. You know, I was told, you know, in order for you to respect things, you have to touch them. You have to be there. And it's so true. And that the old man told me that. And do not be afraid. People make mistakes. Just go in there. They will straighten you. If you do something wrong, they will say something. They won't call you down or whatever, but they're there to teach you. You know, as a young man, you know, helping out with the lodges and stuff like that. The first thing that the elders teach you is to be humble. And I don't know how many times in front of people I've been called dum-dum. I didn't run away, but I stayed there and learned. And that is what they're teaching you.
Thank you so much, Gord. I think in a world of consumption, we need to learn to give gratitude in any place that we're at. So whether we're in this urban area or rural area, and recognize the gifts that Mother Earth has really given us, and that's looking beyond those consumption items, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the most that I've gotten out of a webinar. And really just sit with me. I feel like sometimes when I'm listening to you guys, it's just like you guys are speaking directly to me and there's nobody else here. So I really appreciate all your words. I don't think that we have any more time for questions, but when the video is being sent out, they said that they will try to address all of the questions when the video is sent out after we're done here today. So I just want to, again, thank you guys, Gordon and Catherine. Sometimes I call you Gordy, sorry. When you spend a week in a bush with somebody, you tend to come up with a little nickname with them. So, so this concludes our discussion for the day. Once the series concludes, we'll look for today's recording, as well as a brief summary of points raised by our knowledge keepers. On behalf of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, I would like to thank our knowledge keepers for starting the series off in a good way. I would also like to thank the Natural Resource Canada for hosting the discussion. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day and hope you're able to attend upcoming sessions. Agosai.
Hey, Sandy.
Pidama.
See ya. Thank you.